Thank you so much for your time, Kyle Kemper. It's really great pleasure to speak with you. I'm really impressed. I met you here at Nashville conference. If I may ask, why did you decide to come here?
Well, it's really nice to meet you too, Lenka. And why I decided to come here is because I've always been coming to the Bitcoin conferences since they started in 2014 in Miami, when it was just a kind of a cool little theater with a bunch of radical people. And now here we are 10 years later. Can you believe it? And it's like I saw a Shell booth over there. So it's like, we've seen real transformation and growth. Like, this is one of the biggest conference centers in the world. We're in Nashville, in Music City, in the Music City Center, and I love coming to these events because there's so many friends from a decade of involvement in this space, and just to witness where everybody's going and see the beautiful artwork and to
Yeah,
meet
that's
great
gorgeous.
people.
I know you also travel often with the presidential candidate Robert Kennedy. Did you come to see him as well? And what do you think of him, and the situation now?
Well, I have dedicated my life in the last basically like 15, 16 months to Bobby the Remedy Kennedy. I heard him on a podcast, on a video last February, and I was like, wow, this guy is the most qualified man to be president. He's actually qualified, like a real leader, like a really good, awesome, intelligent, experienced, spiritually centered human. And when he made that courageous declaration to go, especially given his family history, I was basically all in. Because I come from a political family, and in Canada, I think the best thing for Canada would be Bobby to get in office down here. And he's a storm. He's bringing energy in from all around, and it's just growing. We got 101 days until the election, so.
What do you think of the U.S. politics now after the attempted assassination against Trump? We even have a painting over here. I actually just noticed it now. Of a Trump. How do you think it changed the dynamics? And especially as you mentioned, like Mr.
Wow.
Mr. Kennedy is like from a family where this happened, right? Like, how do you think it changed the dynamics of the U.S. politics?
Well, I think we're in a very kind of chaotic time. There have never been Joe Biden. He's not running. He's since declared he's not running. It's there's turmoil on the Democrat side. The Trump attempted assassination, had it been a couple inches off, we could be in the middle of a civil war. So, fortunately, that didn't happen. I think by Kennedy being in the race, he's elevating the level of discussion and discourse. Like, Trump is here. Trump wouldn't be here if Bobby wasn't here and Bobby hadn't already set a really strong precedent. Bobby's coming with amazing policy and ideas and sourcing. Now, Trump is kind of leaning and learning from that. And I know a lot of the Republican independent libertarians like Trump, they also really like Bobby. And I know a lot of Trump's team really likes Bobby too, including Donald Trump himself.
I totally agree. You can see that Mr. Kennedy, as I already told you, is really very well read. He knows what he's talking about. He knows a lot about history, about the conflict in Ukraine. He really can go back and give deep answers on everything. It's really impressive. What do you think of the idea that Kennedy could be taking votes from Trump, and now we have Harris as the counter candidate?
I think it's difficult to know who Bobby's taking more votes from, whether it's the Republicans or the Democrats, Trump or Harris. But I think the Democratic Party is in such shambles, and they constantly are trying to they feed on hate and division, and it's all about Trump is like this dictator on day one is their argument, and that that democracy is at stake. But they're classic projectionists. They are projecting what they represent. The Democratic Party is trying to keep Bobby off of the ballots. They do not want Americans to be able to fairly vote for him. They're trying to put Trump in jail. They do not want, they want, the same thing that Zelensky wants and has, which is no elections or completely rigged elections. So, the lawfare and the tactics out of the DNC are quite deplorable. And I think a lot of traditional liberals no longer kind of associate with that. So with Kennedy as an alternative, he can be the remedy to this broken, divided, toxic, polarized American political landscape and help make talking great again.
Yeah.
Because we need to just talk. There's been so much divide and conquer, divisive, so much hate that, people instantly, and this gets propelled with social media too. It's like, there's this like trigger culture of like, so if we can just take a breath and listen with our ears and look with our own eyes and use our own mind to think for ourselves and be wary of, what comes through the television. Because it's called television for a reason.
That's a great one. Never thought about that. He also went recently on Tucker's Carlson show, and Tucker Carlson is now like this part of new wave in the U.S. Journalism to sort of open the eyes and show the other side of the coin, even if you don't agree with that. Do you think like he can get on his side more people and sort of bring this all out, and other like the media companies will adjust to that with time?
I think so. And I mean, Tucker's done an amazing job of having long form discussions. And I think the long form discussions are really like, a lot more valuable than the short form, like, traditional news that we see, which is kind of hypnotic and generally presents itself as objective, but it's very subjective and sometimes subversive, or malintentioned, if you will. But Tucker, by having long-form discussions with people, it gives them a chance to really kind of get in a good talk and hear great stories and tell the side of the story that a lot of people, want to hear. And, from him being the number one host on Fox to now being the number one journalist in the world with an independent platform, kudos to you, Tucker. You're awesome.
And if I can now ask you about you're you're originally from Canada, right? Like, what do you think of the current Canadian state and where it's heading to? Because here in the U.S. we are hearing few negative things about Canada and the sort of growing Nazism there. What do you think of that?
Canada has a lot of challenges right now. The last 4 years have been very difficult on the spirit of Canada. A lot of the innovators and the creators simply left because, that's, you can stay and fight, but the truckers showed up, and the government had a policy to enrage versus engage because, and this is one of the challenges that a lot of the status quo propagandist, globalist, corporatocracy governments, they rely on lies, like the COVID, scenario. There were so many lies that they told, and they fed them. When challenged in an actual debate, are like, let's sit down and have a discussion about this. They can't. So instead, they just say conspiracy theory. You're a right wing. You're an extremist. You're deplorable. They just attack. They gaslight. It's just a bunch of bullshit. And so the Canadian government did that, and fortunately my brother is the spokesperson for the Canadian government, or the Prime Minister. But I don't really feel that he's the one who is calling the shots. He's he's part of this Globalist Managerial Class, and I feel that Bobby, by coming into the States, can help shift the energy, because Canada is kind of like the 51st state of the United States. What happens down here, Canadians really care a lot about what American politics, and that will help shift the energy. And he's asking some damn good questions, and hopefully he gets more people in Canada asking damn good questions. And Canada needs to fix itself a little bit, and there's a lot of people that are waiting and wanting change. So, but I am concerned about the Canadian political, societal structure, integrity, happiness quotient. People are scared. People are poor. People can't afford to live. It's becoming a very desperate situation for many.
It's very sad, yeah, what I'm seeing on videos and in the news. But also, you mentioned an interesting point about like the U.S. influencing states around it, right? For example, I'm from Europe, and we are also very impatient, sort of, in a way, who is going to be the president, because it will greatly impact Europe, the war in Ukraine, the economic situation. Can we be buying cheaper gas from, Russia or not? So it's, as you said, and I can imagine for Canada.
Can we enable like fair, open commerce? Like instead of like, there's this geopolitical like, game of risk being played, and it's not a win-win scenario. It's a win-lose, and we should be actually refactoring and thinking, how can we create win to the power of win scenarios with our allies and even, our adversaries? Although I wouldn't even call them adversaries, because the great thing about the people of Earth and of humanity is there is a desire for shared humanity and ideal outcomes. And I think when we start talking and understanding the challenges we're facing and coming together to collectively solve them in open, transparent processes, we can see amazing solutions to help bring us into this emergent golden age into which we are transitioning right now.
Yeah, it's. I totally agree. And if I may, last question. I know you are here with your family, and I don't want to take too much of your time. But you're bare feet.
I'm bare feet.
How did it? I don't want to say how did it happen. I actually think it's very healthy, right? But how? What led you to that, or how does it feel?
Uh, shoes are rubber for the most part, and they break connectivity. So people say, take your shoes off, ground a little bit. It helps to, I don't know, it feels like there's an energy thing. Also, I don't know, one of my feet's a little bit bigger than the other, so all the shoes don't always fit the right way. And, sometimes I just like to take my shoes off and just, feel it. And people are always worried. Like some people who are in fear states are like, oh, like you're not wearing your shoes and it's dirty. And it's like, yeah,
It actually doesn't look that very dirty.
Foot.
They're clean. They're cleaner than my socks probably now in the shoes.
Right?
Yeah.
And so I like and Bobby likes to be barefoot too. And it's just a lot of people like to be barefoot. And I think it's like, it's kind of the natural way.
Yeah, you connect with the ground.
And connect with the ground, and so that's kind of one of the things that I like to do.
Okay.
I like to also cut the sleeves off my shirts because
really?
I just got this shirt. I just cut the sleeves off it. Normally I'd cut the collar off too, but I was a little lazy. But I was generally wear Kennedy gear all the time. But someone gave me this free Ross on day one.
Yeah.
I think we should free Ross now,
Yeah.
like right now.
Yeah.
So Ross was just an innovator who built something that succeeded.
Yeah.
His ego may have gotten a little bit big, but he then also got entrapped by the government, and it's like, it's a tragedy what happened to Ross Ulbricht. And he has gotten a PhD in the correctional system, and I think there might be a place for him, in a future Trump or Kennedy administration, because he knows the inside of that system. One way to know, Malcolm Gladwell talks about 10,000 hours to become an expert in something. Well, Ross got his 10,000 hours in the correctional system, and I look forward to him being released, and it's going to happen.
Yeah.
And I can't wait to shake his hand and give him a hug, and and move forward.
Yeah, I think with the right president, it will happen.
Yeah, I was kind of hoping that Kamala Harris, who seems like she's now the president, basically, that she would just pardon him now.
Yeah.
Bobby's talking about it, Trump's talking about it. She was invited to speak here, declined.
Oh, she was? I didn't
She
know.
was invited. Oh yeah,
Wow.
she was invited. They were in talks, and they ultimately declined. Why? Because unless it could have been a very hostile environment. Like people aren't this crowd is innovators, pioneers, very creators.
Yeah,
traders.
pro-Trump.
There's something like I don't know what the number is, but there's trillions of dollars worth of of wealth and economic activity within these walls today of people like creating. This is a very, very knowledgeable, attractive voting bloc and allies. And Kamala could have come here and commuted Ross's sentence and made a bunch of won a bunch of points for doing that. But instead she didn't, and she's famous.
No one elsewhere.
No, and she's famous for actually keeping people in jail in California.
Except the illegal immigrants, though.
Yeah, and keeping people in jail so that they can participate in their work camps, because the American penitentiary system are basically work camps, and they produce a lot of goods. So it's tantamount to slavery. And it's modern day slavery in effect in America. There's many different forms of slavery, and that's one of them. And that's something that Bobby talks about. We need to deal with that, because it's like the privatization of penitentiaries and the correctional system, to privatization of homeless situation, to addiction, to healthcare. And it's not that privatization is the wrong, but it's privatization combined with government subsidies. That's when you get this very dangerous kind of situation.
Well, thank you so much for your time. It was a great pleasure
You're so
talking
welcome,
to you.
Micah.
I
It was
really
a real
appreciate
pleasure.
it.
Yeah. Thank you, everybody out there. Appreciate you.
Thank you.